9 years after it cost him his job, Malcolm Turnbull's finally succeeded in convincing his coalition colleagues to adopt a climate and energy policy. Outnumbering a handful of critics, Liberal and Nationals MPs have agreed to back their government's national electricity guarantee. But the plan hasn't yet won bipartisan support, and some states and territories are reserving their judgment as well. Political editor Andrew Probyn.
When it's the enemies within who can harm you the most, relief is palpable.
Well, the party room has today overwhelmingly supported the National Energy Guarantee.
Another hurdle navigated.
We are one step closer to cheaper and more reliable energy.
But not before the Prime Minister's energy policy endured a testy party room grilling. A handful of coalition MPs reserving their right to cross the floor, including Tony Abbott, West Australian Andrew Hastie, Tony Passon from South Australia and outspoken Queenslander George Christensen.
The Turnbull government has a laser-like focus on reducing power bills, reducing the household average family's power bill by $550 a year.
The government's job explaining how its policy will do this. Not so easy when Tony Abbott labels attempts so far as merchant bankers' gobbledygook, the former Prime Minister vicious in his criticism, saying loyalty should not demand the unity of lemmings.
We have got to bring an end to the years of ideology and idiocy which have been a curse on energy policy for too long.
We have cobbled together today a Frankenstein's monster of a policy.
But it's a monster Labor hasn't ruled out adopting, notwithstanding its reservations.
Today is a substantial victory for the right-wing attack on renewable energy, and Australians will pay the price for Malcolm Turnbull's weakness.
He's right, it's a dud of a policy, yet he refused to say that Labor would not send this back to the drawing board.
The ABC understands Labor's prepared to accept the National Energy Guarantee mechanism, but not the 26% emission reduction target, which the government will seek to legislate in the next fortnight. So Malcolm Turnbull's energy policy survives its toughest test to date. And tonight, state energy ministers will hold a phone hookup to decide whether it lives into tomorrow. The climate wars aren't over yet by any stretch, but the Prime Minister will be hoping they've lost at least some of their sound and fury.
The time for shouting at the clouds and shouting at each other on energy policy is over. The time for action and implementing this policy is right now.
A call for a parliamentary truce that's bound to be ignored. Andrew Probyn, ABC News, Canberra.
When it's fully in place, the plan holds out the prospect of power bill relief for all. But as National Affairs correspondent Greg Jennett explains, customers will still have to wait up to 2 years to notice it.
Well, if it all goes to plan or to the predictions of modellers, this complicated set of promises is meant to directly save average households $150 a year and $550 when other electricity rule changes are lumped in. And for big industrial power users, their savings are said to be worth around 20%. Overall, the National Electricity Guarantee is supposed to ensure power's constantly available when it's needed and not hit by the varying levels of sun, wind or water storages. And it would lock power generators into cutting their carbon emissions. So they're the goals, but there are plenty of uncertainties between here and when all of this is supposed to start in 2020. If Labor's in power next year, it'd almost double the targets for carbon emission cuts, again changing the delicate mix of coal-fired power and renewables within our electricity systems. So the certainty that investors have been craving before they spend up on much-needed new electrical systems might have edged a little closer today, but elections and changes of government still have the same strong capacity to unsettle them, just as they have for a decade.